There is another way. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. Dear Divine Ones, welcome back to Miracle Mantras. I'm Kiran Jotkar, and I'll be reading today's lesson and then singing the mantra with you again and adding a commentary. This is lesson number 33. There is another way of looking at the world. Today's idea is an attempt to recognize that you can shift your perception of the world in both its outer and inner aspects. A full 5 minutes should be devoted to the morning and evening applications. In these practice periods, the idea should be repeated as often as you find comfortable, though unhurried applications are essential. Alternate between surveying your outer and inner perceptions, but without an abrupt sense of shifting. Merely glance casually around the world you perceive as outside yourself. Then close your eyes and survey your inner thoughts with equal casualness. Try to remain equally uninvolved in both and to maintain this detachment as you repeat the idea throughout the day. The shorter exercise periods should be as frequent as possible. Specific applications of today's idea should also be made immediately when any situation arises which tempts you to become disturbed. For these applications say, there is another way of looking at this. Remember to apply today's idea the instant you are aware of distress. It may be necessary to take a minute or so to sit quietly and repeat the idea to yourself several times. Closing your eyes will probably help in this form of application. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at this. There is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at the there is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at this. There is another way. There is another way. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way. This is such a beautiful lesson, and it reminds me of the story of how A Course in Miracles came to be, right? They said to these two professors, professionals, colleagues, said to each other, there must be another way. Instead of all the infighting, instead of all the judgments, instead of the peace always being disturbed. And so this beautiful, beautiful teaching was born and brought through that we get to practice in every situation. We can say, there is another way of looking at this. So in every situation, right, this is a course principle, we can see it either as love or a call for love. But this sometimes can be quite difficult, right? Because we are saying some situations are more difficult than others. That's the ego's perception. But so we can start with the little ones. We can start with things that are not so difficult. If you're in a hurry and you're driving behind someone and they're going slow or there's a traffic jam, instead of getting yourself all disturbed and worked up, you could just say, there's another way of looking at this. What can I appreciate in this moment? How can I practice my breathing or call a loved one that I've been meaning to call, or just appreciate something around you? So in every situation we have a choice, and we can remind ourselves there is always another way. I look forward to being with you again tomorrow.